So, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be comparing TAIP, which is a plugin by Baby Audio, this one, to, if I can find it, Ozone 9 vintage tape. So what these both are tape emulations. So like tape machines, what you would tend to record audio through, you know, from the 60s to the 90s most of the time. And then you sort of went to ADAT machines and then to a DAW. So what these both do is they essentially color the sound, because that's what people like about tape, especially nowadays, is that it does change the sound slightly. So these two are going to be put into some different situations. So there's going to be a master bus and then more effects based tape. So putting it on the master bus, I don't really want it to be, you know, too noticeable, just to sort of glue everything together. What I'm using for tests today is Like It or Not by Private Party. So this is a song that I mixed. This is a more recent mix than the one that's currently out on Spotify, but I made this mix on stream. I don't think there's a VOD of me doing it because I forgot to save, but still, I made this on stream and I think it sounds pretty good. So this is without either tape emulation. I'll just loop up the start here. Actually, no, I'll loop up when the vocals come in, so we get a good idea of the full band.
I think your mind has changed your locks again. I can't get into your house.
Okay, so you can tell, rather like standard band mix, that kind of thing. But if we then add either Ozone Vintage or TAIP, we can pull in just a bit of glue just to, you know, put it all together. So this is on my master bus. I got Pro Q, BX Townhouse, which is like a bus compressor, Lindell PEX 500, bit of a mouthful, which is like a pull tech kind of thing. Then just an imager, and then a tape machine. So first off, vintage tape. So let's go.
I think your mind has changed your locks again. I can't get into.
You can add, you hear it just adds like a little bit of color. That's all it does. It's just a bit of color and some slight like harmonic richness to it. So with this tape machine, this is built for a mastering suite, which is Ozone 9. So obviously it's not going to be extremely like affecting in the same way. You know, you get tape plugins that like completely mess up the sound. This isn't what this is for. This is for mastering. This is for just slight subtle richness that you would add in the master. So I really like the way it colors the sound. I think it's subtle while not like being so subtle that you don't notice. I really like their harmonics switch here as well. So you got.
I think your mind has changed your locks again. I can't get it.
You can hear it just like it's just slightly different, just a bit different. Okay, let's swap over to TAIP. Now, what's nice with TAIP is that this is their selling point, at least is why it's called TAIP, is that it's AI powered, meaning that the tape is not like this one specific thing constantly. It's this long, forever lasting, slightly variable sound, you know, like you would get on a real tape. And just from looking at the interface, you can clearly tell this is built to be its own plugin. It's not like it doesn't have to conform to the style of a larger bundle like vintage tape does. So, you know, you've got like these dials that let you set the drive that are also the tape heads, that kind of stuff. But just from looking at this, you can see noise, wear, glue, high shape, low shape. So these high shape, low shape, they're very similar to the low presence, high presence on vintage tape. Isotope, come on. It does work, it's just that sometimes it doesn't, which is lovely. Yeah, so low emphasis, high emphasis is basically the same thing. No speed on here, which is interesting. There's no speed on this, which is fine. But, you know, it'd be nice to see, seeing as this is like a tape plugin. There's wear. Wear is really nice for that, like, affecting tape thing, where it, like, messes up the sound. But, you know, for master bus, I barely touch it. Noise, so you can bring in some, like, analog noise to your signal, which, again, interesting, but I wouldn't want to do it, because it's like, you know, why would I want to introduce analog noise to my master bus? It doesn't make sense, really. Then you've got this glue control, which is really nice. I'm sure this is sort of a bit like the harmonics control. It just brings in, you know, a bit more oomph, I guess is the way you could call it. Drive, a bit like input drive bias on that. But you can also have it in parallel, which is lovely. And you've got auto gain and an output control, that kind of stuff. So let me A/B these for you, and we'll see how they sound.
I think you might have changed your locks again. I can't get into your house, but that's okay because I know how to pick your locks. And even if I didn't, there's a spare key.
Okay, so you can hear the TAIP is pretty, like, similar, but it's got this slightly different character that's more present compared to this. So this is a vintage tape again.
I think you might have changed your locks again. I can't get into your house, but that's okay because I know how to.
What I notice is that vintage tape is a lot less affecting to the mid-range, whereas TAIP really, like, drives that mid-range more. So, like, you can hear on vintage tape, you still have this, like, very present bass.
I think you might have changed your locks again. I can't get into your house, but that's okay because I know how to pick your locks. And even if I didn't, there's a spare key. I think you might have changed your locks again. I can't get into your house, but that.
So, listening to this and listening to the comparisons, I think you may have figured out that for the master bus, I'm going to be using vintage tape because I think it colors the sound in a very specific way that I really like. It doesn't mess it up as much. Like, I feel like TAIP, I could dial in like a perfect preset and never touch it. But vintage tape just gets me there. It gets me to where I need to be. Just this, which is just what I dialed in very quickly because of its simplicity. Whereas I feel like TAIP is almost trying to be more of an RC20 style plugin. RC20 is like a multi-effect, lo-fi maker kind of thing. And no discredit to TAIP, I think it's an excellent plugin. I mean, on something like rhythm guitars, let's say. You hear it adds that grit, but you don't necessarily want a master bus tape plugin to be adding that much grit, that kind of thing. Also, I really like the presets in here. They're really, really good. Presets are very useful to work quickly. And then I can build off of that preset, obviously, but for the sake of this, it's easy. You know, obviously that's a bit too much drive, but it sounds lovely. There's a preset in here called Indie Guitar, I believe. That's really, really nice. this on private party stuff in particular. Obviously, this will be attached to Finn's work when I do it for the final project, but because I have no access to Finn's final multi-tracks yet, I'm using what I have that's closest to his music. Although his is more poppy production-wise than private party, so take that into account as you will. But yeah. You hear how it does that thickening, but I don't want that on my master bus. So
I think you might have changed your locks again.
So for the TAIP plugin that I'm going to be using for the album for the mixing, I'm going to end up using Ozone 9 vintage tape for the master bus, but I'm going to use TAIP on my individual channels because I think it just like it affects stuff a lot nicer than vintage tape. It's like this, it's an effects unit, whereas vintage tape is a tape emulation unit, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I hope you've learned something from that, and I will see you in another video that's probably also on my website.